I was kind of a bit defensive at first because I'm thinking, oh, another thing to get into, right? And you kind of think, I don't have time for this. But, I think you got me into I think it was one of the podcasting ones. And because of that, that actually what boosted me to start within 2 weeks, because I was making, all these excuses of, getting ahead or just starting. And I got into a session with Rob Atkins, which I don't know if you know him. He's quite up there, which I had no idea.
Yeah.
And he invited me up on stage, and it was kind of like, the topic was, what's stopping you from starting your podcast? So I figured, oh, what the heck, I'll jump on. Plus, I was Australian. I was kind of like the black sheep in the group of the conversation because everyone was American. And he pulled me up and he asked me, he's like, what's stopping you? And I said, look, as funny as it is, I already know the answer. It's just fear, And we went through all that, and then I was quite motivated. Plus, because I had put it out there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to deliver. So just started, just made it happen, set the date. And because I knew I was going to do it, but like, knowing you're going to do it versus doing it is, there's a big gap in the middle, right? So getting into that. Yeah. And then so I haven't really done any more of the podcasting ones, but one guy out of that, which is actually my recent episode, Justin Nolan, he actually reached out and he said, if I ever need any help, support, just let me know. I'm like, who is this guy? I have no idea. Anyway, we started chatting, and then he invited me into the Clubhouse. And now I do at least, well, it's weekly episodes. We do Clubhouse at 12 p.m. on Wednesdays. And that's basically about, chasing big dreams and how to make them easy. And yeah, we just have an hour chit chat. We sometimes don't have topics or anything. We just kind of get in, have chat, people jump in. Sometimes it's just him and me, someone else, Deontay. Otherwise, we've had times when we've had like 40 or 50 people in there as well.
Wow,
so
that's heaps.
It's been pretty cool, and we've tried to keep that consistency. But we've had a few little conflicts in the last couple of weeks, just with timings and things. So we wanted to put some structure behind it and try and have some, I guess, themed topics around the chasing big dreams, because it's very broad, right? And we might have one around how to chase your dreams and make it one step at a time, or we might have something theme or topical around chasing dreams in the sporting world or something like. So then you can attract the different people, and then they can use that as parallels to their own whatever it is they're chasing. So that's been really good. But at start I was on it so much, and it was so bad because I just wanted to listen. I just wanted to get in. But now it's basically on it once a week, 1 hour to 2 hours. And that's it, because otherwise it's just too much.
It's an extra thing. Like you said, like, oh my God, another thing to go and follow and be a part of and try a new app. As a content creator and someone that's, grinding and hustling, it's enticing and it's great for networking and stuff, but how much time is there to really balance that amongst everything else? And obviously we'll get into all your endeavors and stuff. You do a lot, actually, a lot more than us. I thought we hustled, but I would say you're the biggest hustler, Chris, out of the three.
Well, I'm wearing a hustle jumper as well.
Very nice. Well, that was like, because we were on Clubhouse so much in the beginning, and then we're just like, we don't really have much time for anything else. But it's such a... Listening to Chris now, it's like such an untapped opportunity, especially, if you want to interview people and all that kind of stuff. So I think we should get back into it.
It's very different as well. Like I didn't even host or talk on there because I found it very nervous. Like we make YouTube videos and we speak on camera a lot, but a lot of it is the visual aspect and the body language to go with it. But I was like, I'm too nervous to go and speak on there because it's all voice. If they hear any hesitation or in your voice or anything, there's a lack of confidence. The person might not be talking sincerely about what they're talking about. So I was like, I don't know if I want to actually voice my thoughts on there.
Yeah, I think it's because it's such it's a stripped down version, so it seems a lot more personal, because it's like you don't have any other distractions or anything. All you can really do is focus on the voice and what they're saying.
Yeah, it's very different. But yeah, props to you if you're in there at the, what do they call it, the stages, rooms.
Oh yeah, they're rooms or clubs. They're what they call clubs. Yeah, and then you have a room within the club. Yeah.
All right, so let's rewind. Tell us about your story, Chris. You do so much. Obviously, we've been talking back and forth for maybe 6 to 9 months since you came in our sort of reselling hustle niche. You've been doing YouTube for such a long time. Do you want to give everyone an intro into you, what you've been up to, who you are, what you're up to, all that good stuff?
Sure. So Wow, this is overwhelming. So I guess if I have to put it into a short spiel, so yeah, Chris Furlong, and as I like to say, I'm all about running, lifestyle, and everything in between. But now I've jumped into the reselling game since the start of this year, 2021. But to back it up a bit, I've always been someone that's like to have a side hustle, a side gig, or a bit of a passion or something. And, my background is working in professional services as a project manager. So I've, basically, went to high school, went to uni, did a Bachelor of Information Technology, actually got a scholarship for that, which was pretty cool, which enabled us to get a couple of internships at some of the big four companies, which is how I landed my job and kind of went straight in from a grad and, kind of never looked back. But going for the normal 9 to 5, what you kind of taught and, what you think everyone should be doing, which was really good. I loved it because I had seen a lot of, I guess I was progressing to where I wanted to be or where I thought I wanted to be, and it was happening quickly. And so, working for the first 3-4 years, you get into that mentality of like, you're getting money, you're in a secure job and things are going well, and, you're able to buy this and you can create somewhat of a lifestyle that you're looking for. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I always knew that I want to do something for myself. I don't know what that is. And I remember I was still working a second job for the first 3 years while working full time as well. I was doing that on the weekends. Oh. And the reason why was because it was at a little place called the Battery Shop. It was like a little watch shop. And it was the coolest job because I would literally sit in there and people would come in, drop off watches, I'll do a repair, or, they want to pick up some shoes, or they want to, just really, or buy batteries, right? And I would literally just watch TV shows there all day or play RuneScape online, or when eventually I realized I want to start a side gig, a side hustle. So that's where I kicked off my brand at the time, which was called Furry, which is now Further Your Lifestyle. And that at the time, I always had the dream that I wanted that to be something of, helping people pursue their passions. But I'm like, well, how do I start when I've got nothing to go with? And I'm like, oh, well, the quickest way is make a t-shirt and put something on it and then sell it and people will buy it. Right. And, that didn't work. I think it took about 2 years or 3 years for someone that I didn't know to purchase something. Wow. Yeah. There was plenty of people that I was working with, and all the ambassadors and all the network and friendships that I have now have been from reaching out cold. But yeah, so that didn't really kick off the way I wanted. So I continued to work, and then I started the running journey for weight loss, and I was able to lose about 21 kilos within a year. Not just from the running, but I went sugar-free for basically that good full. Well, I did it for about 3-4 years. But that was to just shed it really quick. I kind of just had that moment where I snapped or clicked. Well, it was a bit of both. I snapped at my mate. He was a personal trainer at the time. And he says, well, you're doing exercise and clearly your diet isn't right. And, being a good friend, hearing it from your friends, it hits hard, but it was good also because it was a wake up call. So I kind of took the pride and I'm like, okay, I'm going to prove to everyone that I can, do this. So I just went cold turkey, just cut out sugar. And started running as well, and lost so I think I maxed at 105 kilos, and the best I got down to was like 79, and now I average around, well, depending on what time of the year it is, between 85 and 88. Now to a comfortable state, and so I started the running, and then I started to love the running, and then I started the YouTube, which was about running, and the journey with that was never intended to be anything big. It was kind of like I just wanted to share. And I, got involved with that. But I guess, there's a lot more within all that. And fast forward, after working for 7 years, I kind of and with COVID, I kind of realized, well, there's all these passions and dreams and things that I want to work for, but I don't have time to do it. So I took a leave of absence at the start of 2021. I can take up to 2 years of leave of absence, and figured, well, let's spend, the 60 hours that I was working at work on myself and see what I can do. And yeah, it's going really good.
That's awesome. That's such a wild journey, and there's a lot to unpack there for sure. You've been doing YouTube for like 4 years. We've gone and done a bit of a deep dive on you, Chris. We've uncovered some dirty secrets about you, to be honest.
Okay, please tell.
No, so we're watching a few of your older channels older videos rather, and like you said, like you just started doing running videos with no intention, just purely to show yourself running. How did that sort of start?
Yeah.
Were you inspired by other running channels and stuff at the time?
Or do you just want to like document, I guess, your journey along the way?
Yeah, to be honest, the thing that got me doing it, and I can't remember where I've shared this before, but I was watching, because I've always liked to see what other people are doing. Like, I have that curiosity. I like people doing their passions. But I remember when they released the GoPro 5, Hero 5, and the video for that was, because it was at the same time they released the drone. And the video for that, it just blew me away. Like, I watched it and I got the goosebumps from it. I'm like, this could give so much opportunity or so much power to be able to just create something. And I figured, well, if I could buy a GoPro, I'm running, I love seeing what I'm seeing when I'm running. So I figured, I get a GoPro, I can just share the same things that I'm seeing, and people would probably enjoy it because, that's what they see. If I like it, someone else will.
Yep.
Obviously, there's that expectation versus reality of, at the time, there wasn't stabilization in the GoPros. It was clunky, it was horrible, and I didn't know how to talk in front of the camera. So it was, a big slap in the face kind of thing, because I'm like, crap, I have to now figure out how to be confident. And I used to just make videos of me running, and I'm like, this is boring as heck. And I wasn't watching other running YouTubers. Like, I naturally started to because I wanted to grow in that community. But I had same thing. I went cold turkey. I just wanted to start and share and, try and get as many people as possible to be watching it, which was friends and family. And, they saw enough of that on Instagram or me talking about running. So, it wasn't what I thought it would be, but hey, you got to start.
Yeah. And it's interesting to go back through a lot of your videos and see the ups and downs of your channel. You've been 4 years is crazy. I thought we were doing our stuff a long time, 2 years, and the output of your the amount of videos you've done is insane. So
it's so cool.
Everyone should go and follow Chris's YouTube channel and all his other endeavors. He's Further Your Lifestyle podcast, but there's so much running content on there. There's shoe reviews, everything like that. It seems like once you started to do the marathon training videos and the weekly updates leading up to the Melbourne Marathon, that's where your channel sort of took a bit more of a growth spurt. The viewership and stuff was way more consistent. How was that whole experience in terms of leading up to was it your first marathon?
No, so the one last year was my second, but you're right. When I started doing training series, whether it was for my first half and then I did my first marathon, they really did bring in a lot more, obviously running community. And I was probably doing that with around, it was less than 500 subs. It was around 300. But last year when I did my marathon training plan, which at the time I was going to go for a PR or a PB, not knowing that COVID was coming, of course. And I wanted to really kind of up it, learning from what I had been doing in the past from my own, documentation. I figured I want to share it a bit different. I figured I'd use the Nike app and take people through that and give them that real point of view perspective. And from doing that, from the reflecting on the times, previously, I realized that I was coming more out of my shell because I wasn't just talking about running content. Even though I was doing the running, it was vlog style, I was also talking about, me venting about my work week or me venting about life or, just books I was listening to. And that series became more than just running. And that's how I actually managed to get a broader community, because all of a sudden I had people watching it that weren't runners and people that are really good friends now because they just loved what I was sharing or giving my advice on, because I was kind of embedding book reviews into those. I was embedding, just random stuff, but I was just saying it as raw as possible, being 100% transparent. And that's, I think, what changed, because I became a lot more self-aware and I wasn't just showing the highlights of my running journey, but, the sheer, blood, sweat and tears. And I had a lot of people reach out for that. And that it was quite overwhelming because I didn't go into it with the intent to say, hey, look at me. I kind of was doing it for myself, but also just speaking straight to the camera, because every time I run, I film, but I never actually shared half that stuff. So I'd share one video a week and that would be on my favorite run or whatever the topic was. But every time I'm out, I'm filming and that footage just gets into my hard drive. So I figured, well, I may start compiling that all up together and make it into those marathon videos, which turned out to be a backyard marathon because of COVID. which then built a bit more suspense because all of a sudden there's all this pressure now I have to deliver. And but those videos went from the week 1 of that training plan was, I think it was about 18 minutes. And then by the end, I was having the videos that worked out to be about, I think my longest was 1 hour and 26 minutes. And that's when I started to invest in using the chapters and timestamps as well. But yeah, so it's been an overwhelming journey, just, hacking it out and grinding. But it wasn't until something extra clicked, and I was able to step it up further. And then obviously this year, with the reselling, it's changed even more.
Yeah, it must have been a massive eye-opener and even like a confidence booster that compared to your previous running vlogs where you, like you said, you didn't really talk much. It was just purely you giving mile updates compared to the ones where you were talking, being more vulnerable with the viewership and stuff. That's where it started to take off. So yeah, how did that feel would you get more confident in that regard, just opening up and talking about more of yourself, sharing more of your personal story as opposed to just giving like running updates?
Yeah, I think the moment I realized that, look, I'm not to say that I don't, don't get scared or, that I'm nervous in front of the camera or whatever. But I think the moment that clicked for me was I think I was about probably 6-7 weeks into the backyard marathon training plan. And I did I think it was just a half marathon in as one of the training runs. And I finished it and I broke into tears. And it was at that moment I'm like, okay, so do I either put this on or do I not? And the tears were just because I was just so proud of myself of getting it done. And that was when we were in the 1 hour lockdown limit. So I was doing, half of it outside and then, a lot of it outside of my property. And then I was just doing repeats in the driveway. And so I broke down into tears and I'm like, stuff it, I got to put it in because otherwise everything I'm talking about of trying to share the journey and being transparent and be authentic. If I don't put that in, that's throwing the whole thing out the window. So after doing that, even though a lot of people didn't see it, and I would know who was watching my content because obviously, unless you saw it, people aren't going to say anything. Or I had a few people reach out, but it was at that moment I'm like, okay, this is what I love doing, and it kind of boosted me, and I wasn't really caring so much about the watch time because, I was probably only getting like 7 to 15 minutes of people watching those hour videos, but that was higher than any of my other content anyway. So I can't expect people to sit around and watch an hour video of me running because, it's not that exciting. But, they could find pockets of things that was more relevant to them, whether it is the running, whether it was me talking about other creators, whether it was me talking about, crying, why am I crying, or, whatever it may be. And yeah, that really did give me the confidence boost to kind of just jump into it. And then with everything that was going on, I was building up even more confidence because we're in lockdown. So the only people I could talk to was the YouTube fans. So every time I was talking to the camera, I was talking to them as if like I was catching up for whoever was listening. And I knew that, there was always the 10, 15 folks that I could guarantee were going to comment and share and, chat to. So yeah, no, that was a big game changer.
Yeah, that's something amazing that the YouTube community and like the live community has been able to do is just like open it up to everybody. So whether, like yourself who is in lockdown, or everybody who's in lockdown across the world, all you have to do is turn on your computer, turn on your camera, and just get to chat to somebody and connect to someone. Yeah, whether it's, whether you're having a good day or a bad day, the fact that you can share it with someone, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a game changer. Like I've got really, really good friends from it now. Like my next episode coming out this week for the podcast is with Kevin Exconde. And he's probably like, I would say he's one of my best friends now because we chat, once every couple of weeks and just hang out, and he does a live stream and a hangout there. But it's like we've known each other our entire lives, but we've only known each other for probably a year now. And it's just because we clicked, and he doesn't run or anything like that. It was just, we just hit it off. So, and there's so many more friends like that. So it was crucial for the mental health. It really was.
So you mentioned your podcast. It is called Further Your Lifestyle. It was initially sort of an outlet from your furry brand, correct?
Yeah. So furry, which is actually my nickname. My full name is, Chris Furlong.
Ask what that meant. I was like,
play on words.
Yeah. I used to get called some interesting things with my nickname, and furry was one of them. And it has no relevance to anything, right? So I just when I started, I'm like, I just got to find something, and I kind of sketched up the original wording, and that's what I went with. But I always had the tagline as "Further Your Lifestyle," and now I'm just in the transition of making furry disappear naturally and just going with "Further Your Lifestyle," because I mean that speaks for itself, and is a lot more bold than furry. Plus, if you type in furry in the wrong way on the internet, you get some interesting stuff. So I wanted to move away from that as quickly as possible, which I didn't know at the time. But you learn these things.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those like classic Aussie sort of, they all shorten your last name. So like, my last name's like Hingston, and it's like Hingo. You're like, it's just classic. People shorten it no matter what.
Yeah, and I didn't want to write it as if furry, like Furry, because I'm like, that was even worse. I'm like, I have to write it in a unique way so that it will show up differently. But then a lot of people didn't know how to pronounce it. People thought it was Fury, or Fury, anyway. So long story short, I kind of went away from that, which the brand, for context, was all about, helping people pursue their passions, right? And that was working with individuals that have a lifestyle that spoke quite loud from, visually, and then tagging up with them or teaming up with them and, sending them some apparel which promoted that lifestyle or represented that lifestyle to, influence other people to either go check them out, see what they're doing, maybe buy the merch, but also to follow what they're doing, which it did. It worked really well, but it's, with anything, it takes time to really get that into a position of where you want it to be. And I realized that wasn't about money. Whereas, now I realize, if I didn't try and focus on the money, it probably would have went better. But I was trying to build, an income, a side income, to know that I wanted to get out of working 9 to 5. But it's not that simple. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit late to never then realize that and revert it and sort of recalibrate what your intentions are with that brand and stuff like that. Are there any future endeavors from the podcast? Is it you still trying to look for that brand aspect and, I don't know, have a website and stuff like that? Yep. Yeah.
So, look, to be honest, originally what I'm doing now with the brand is what I had always thought of what I wanted the brand to be, like working with a community, having conversations. But I'm like, well, how do I start if I don't have a community? And, here I am trying to sell stuff like clothing. But really, if I had built a community first, well, then it's going to naturally grow, and then you'll have people willing to purchase things because you have the community. So leveraging that now, the brand that I already have, because the brand hasn't changed, it still stands for the same values and promoting everything. But now I'm actually just not working a 9 to 5 and proving it that, I'm actually walking the talk as well. And the intent is to kind of, do it, backflip it, or do a 180 and build a community out, and then there's some other avenues that I'll be growing, and that will be coming in the next, hopefully in the next 4 weeks. Some of that will start to release, the changes of that, and then also there's some bigger dreams there that I'm working on, but I have to just remember to tread the path the way it is, like, and not try and force things, because having a podcast, we all know that you're not going to be monetized from day one. And I want to make sure that I'm staying focused on the podcast and building the podcast for what it is, regardless if there's money or not, because then I know that I'm doing it for the right reasons. And then building some things along the way and building that community along the way. And then I can start to, expand some different things that I've always had ideas for, but at least I'll have a bit more grit behind me, or a bit more, I guess, authority behind me to be able to do that.
Yeah, we're very much in the same boat of like how we want to approach our own podcast and our own channel and all that kind of thing. And we're not going to get money for this anytime soon. So it's like, how can we not only enjoy the process, but how can we help it grow? And then eventually, in a couple of years' time, how can we then take that another step further, but also making sure that we're like yourself, keeping to our core values and sticking to the things that we actually want to do.
I think Chris ascribes to the same social media philosophy, I guess you would call it, in terms of just building out your true 1,000 fans.
Yeah.
And you can offshoot them into any future avenues if they're interested to follow you there. But it's about building that core foundation, about not necessarily around the niche, I would say building it around yourself and the personal brand, which, again, we have a very similar philosophy and concept in that regard, and then you have your different. I consider them products, where the brand, and then you have your product offshoot. So, for example, this podcast is a product of our overall brand. But the thing I love about Chris, and I love why I love connecting with Chris and his channel and content, is just the openness and vulnerability. Not afraid to be real about things. Like you said, you've been in marathons, you break down and cry. There's emotional moments. You share that all on your YouTube channel. You're open about your goals and like where you want to take things. You're not hiding away from what you're really chasing. And that's what I really love about you and your channel, and what I think a lot of people are drawn to your channel to. Yeah. Is there any, is that a conscious thing, or is that something you've been an open guy with your friends and family and stuff like that?
Look, it's probably a bit of both. Like if I reflect back when it came to chasing my goal of losing weight, I didn't have a goal of where I wanted to be. I just wanted to, kind of, when I went cold turkey, I didn't tell anyone. I just kind of started doing it and then forced it to happen. So I was probably more of, so in the past, like I even had a blog that I blogged 3 years in a row every single day.
Wow.
And, that it's interesting because I wasn't doing that, telling people I'm going to do this every single day, but I set that goal to myself, but didn't tell anyone, and just put the reps in and then proved it. And then I did 1 year, got to 2 years, and then I got to third year, and I was kind of, starting to question, what am I doing this for? And I realized I was now just doing it because I was doing it, and I had to keep doing it to prove that I can do it. And there was no real mission behind it. Like it just became, for wrong reasons. So, but then going into something as bold as, so I've always shared things, but going into as bold as something as taking a chance on me, there was a whole bunch of things that I wanted to do. And when evaluating it, I'm thinking, well, people need to know the reality of this, because I'm going into it with no understanding of what to expect. There's obviously things that I want, where I want to be or what I want, but it would be nice to be able to show people that journey point of view, kind of like the running stuff as well, which is why I've always had goals and I've always tracked things to somewhat levels, but I figured, well, then it could be a cool way to be able to bring in an audience to ask questions and keep it real. And it's been a challenge sharing some things, because, I don't want to come across as look at me. And that's why I've tried to make sure that I'm being very open about it without saying, this is all the stuff that I've done, but then don't say anything, I don't want to become one of those, classic cliches of an e-commerce store that's, I've done, 5 million sales, and, you see the stupid, adverts on Instagram, and it drives you insane. And I'm not there to do that, but I am there to show that, this week was my best week, but this week was also my worst week, or, it's been my best month, or last month was my worst, to show that journey. And then with all the running, and then with the, the shares, and then with everything else that I'm trying to achieve, and be very, detailed of why. Like the video game one has actually become one of the biggest questions. Like, why do you have a goal for video games? And I'm like, well, because I don't play it enough. Like, and it takes me away from all the rush and, hustle, and it slows me down, and it means I take a break, and it's good for my mental health in that sense, because otherwise I'm always trying to compete with myself or compete with others, or, there's always something you can be doing. So if I play a game, it kind of just calms me down a bit.
Yeah, it is interesting that you've scheduled in or have a goal of playing 3 video games. You don't hear many people having that as a goal, but obviously with all the avenues and endeavors you're doing, you do need to, you don't have to necessarily schedule it in, but being conscious of, like, I should take more time to myself, find an outlet to turn off completely. So let's rewind to you took a chance on yourself at the start of the year. Essentially giving yourself more tasks to do, which is sort of why you need the gaming avenue as an outlet. What was it like? I guess I'm more interested to hear about the lead up to that decision and the few months leading up to it, as opposed to the decision and the taking action after the fact of doing that video. What was like the 6 months leading up to it like? How long had you considered sort of using reselling to supplement your main job and attack all your endeavors? What was there a catalyst moment, or was it like, talk us through that?
Yeah. So it would actually be about a year back from now. Like it was June when we were kind of going back into lockdown. I mean, here in Melbourne, we had lockdown pretty bad. Worst case was curfew and 1 hour outside of home. And we did that for about 2-3 months, and then it then it kind of really, dropped down and it was a bit better. And it was in that moment when I'm working, nothing wrong with my job. My job's really, really good. Pays well, great company, so many perks. But, working in your room, not being able to separate work from life and play and all that jazz, I started to realize, well, clearly I'm not doing this for the money, because your paycheck comes in, can't do anything with it anyway. Now, that was circumstantial because of COVID, but I realized I wasn't motivated for the money. Whereas in the past I was, and, I could see the progression and getting it. Now for full transparency, I'd been with the company, and I still am with the company because I'm on a leave of absence, but, I was 7 years into my journey with the company as a manager. So, there was a lot more. It's not like I was just an analyst, just showing up doing 9 to 5. I had my own team. There's people I was accountable for, money that I was responsible for. There was a lot of pressure and, expectation there, and it was only going to get more as I continued to grow. So I started to weigh up, like, there has to be more to life than this. Just seeing what everyone else was doing, and I always found myself, drifting and daydreaming into other things of what I would rather be doing. And that's when I started to think more on it. And it took me 3 months from June to September to really even have a deeper conversation with my boss about it. And then it was kind of like a month after that, I kind of just said, nah, stuff it. This is it. I'm done. And he actually took it pretty well. He said, yeah, I get it. He gave me some good advice, and, I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, yeah, go for it. Yeah, and it wasn't what I expected. So that was really well received.
That's amazing. That is so good that they were so supportive of you and what you wanted to do.
Is it something?
No, go.
Is it something that I've dealt with before with other employees and stuff? Because that's pretty unusual to take a leave of absence. Obviously, I haven't heard of it that much before, realistically.
So, I mean, the company provides that, that we can take a leave of absence. And, it wasn't as simple as that. He was kind of like, well, obviously you need to change and take some time. Don't do anything stupid and just quit. Think about what the options are. And, took me his advice. And, he's a managing director in the company, and he said to me, he's been around the block. He'd worked for 3 other companies, worked for himself. He'd been a contractor. So, he'd been around the block, and obviously a lot older than me. He's got wife and kids. And so, he said, think about this. This is, if I was able to do something like that, I would do it too. And, you're at that age where what's the worst that can happen? If you fail, just come back to work, big whoop kind of thing. So no shame, it's not like I have to look after kids. I don't necessarily have a huge expensive lifestyle or things that I have to manage. The only risk was some rental properties and things like that. But we talked about, and he was 100% supportive. So with that in mind, I was like, cool. So I used October to December, other than handover, which was quite stressful because we were still growing in our client and things like that. So it was a crazy 3 months. It was horrible, to be honest, but all for the right. It wasn't wrong. It was just everything was happening, right? There was so much stress because of COVID and trying to grow and all that jazz. So it took me 3 months to kind of figure out, well, what am I actually going to do? Which I knew the one thing was the podcast. Further Your Lifestyle podcast has to be the priority. Because that's my chance to do it. I've had this microphone that I'm talking into for 2.5 years, and it took me 2.5 years to get it out and do anything with it. So that was the number one goal. But then I'm thinking, hang on, I need to be able to have some income, because I had about paid leave all the way up until mid-May, because that's how much I had accumulated. And I'm thinking, well, I'll leverage that. But then after that, I'm still going to have some money coming in, because I want to maximize this as much as possible, assuming that I wanted to continue after using up that leave, which I have. And so I'm like, what's the quickest way for me to make money? It's not obviously selling clothing, because that hasn't worked. And I'm thinking, well, the YouTube isn't monetized either. So I kind of just fell back onto, which this is one of those things where I regret not taking action on sooner, is I've always done reselling. Like, it's just not really, religiously, but just casually, I'll go out on the weekends for my mate, who I used to mentor. Now he's a good mate. And we'll go out and we'll just pick up things. And I said, oh yeah, I could sell that for $50. I'll get it for $2. But I never sold it. Like I kind of just hoarded it. Every so often I'll put 10 items up and then, get $500. And I originally used it to like purchase a Switch or buy an Xbox or whatever. Just, a bit of play money. Plus I loved the thrill of it. So that naturally was the first thing I, jumped onto. But, before COVID hit, I kid you not, I was going to create a series of, I sold items on eBay for 30 days. This is the result. But I couldn't do it because things changed and I wasn't able to go out. And yeah, it was kind of something that I just didn't think about. Like I remember writing it down. I actually filmed the intro for it as well. I remember cleaning my room and, sitting in front of my laptop, making that nice B-roll of me selling on eBay. And that was the challenge I was going to do. And obviously it never happened. And I'm thinking, I look back a year later, well, I look back now, which is now a year later, and where people are that started probably at the same time and how far they got with it, right? Which just blew my mind. Like, you think of like the Aussie flipper, right? Same thing, he kind of just started. And so what I did from October to December was I binge watched everyone, like you guys, 2 Aussie Thrifters, Diver Flipper, the Aussie Flipper, and heaps of other folks as well. And just, kind of worked out what everyone was doing, learned, success leaves clues and find out what everyone's doing and how can I jump in and do this with some level of smartness. And I used October to December to just get some processes in place. We were still able to go out at that time. So I was just buying stuff and just, seeing what it would like, but I haven't really used that as those numbers for this year. They were just the trial months. And yeah, then I started to put some of the feelers out, made some videos. And then that's when I realized, yeah, okay, I embedded myself into the community and I got good response. So I figured, well, then come Jan 11th, 2021, I could go all in and I didn't have to start from scratch, which, my advice to anyone doing anything in terms of starting something on the side, you start it on the side first, right? Don't just drop everything and then expect everything's going to work because, my unfair advantage was I have a background in project management. I know how to run not necessarily business, but a project. So, whether it's the dollars, whether it's the people, whether it's the risk. So I can leverage that. And I'd already done a bit of reselling. So I know what I can jump straight into. And I know how to make YouTube videos as well. So I kind of had the little package of things that I was able to leverage and maybe get ahead of someone starting from cold. And that's why I did. If you'd asked me in June, how would I make money? June last year, I would have no idea. And that was only kind of just as I put more time into it, knowing that something has to change, that would be my best bet.
Yeah. It sounds like you've just made yourself a really, really solid foundation and you only can just go up from here. Like you've, built your house brick by brick just to get it super, super solid. And you're ready, roaring to go. And we can see that happening for you. Like so excited what you're going to do next. It's amazing.
I know you're a very analytical guy. Obviously, anyone that watches your YouTube channels can see your extremely extravagant dashboard spreadsheet. I guess the question would be how are things tracking compared to what your expectations were going back to January 11? It's 5.5, almost 6 months now.
Yeah, so we're 149 days in. It's look. I set a goal for myself for this year to do $100,000 in revenue. Now, I did that to somewhat put it out there to push myself, but also to give me a reality check of how easy but how hard things are as well. Because when I did like $1,000 in 1 week, I was like, okay, this is good. But then when you crunch the numbers, you got to do like $274 per day every day for 365 days to get $100,000, which that's scary as heck. And I'm nowhere near that. Like I know that I'm already today's the 9th of June and I'm looking at my dashboard. I'm meant to be on $17,300 to be on track, and I'm only on $14,400. So I'm way behind, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm better than what I expected, because at the end of the day, I didn't know what to expect. All I knew that I wanted to be able to make some money and I wanted to be able to build the podcast. So I built the podcast. The podcast is going really well and I'm making money. So the 100,000 is kind of like just that challenge, and to show the reality of, well, how well can you do it? Now, if I wasn't doing the podcast, if I wasn't doing YouTube and I was just focusing 100% on reselling, probably could do it. But now the challenge is, well, how do I see if I can up my game with everything that I'm learning, and, you know, whether it's, you know, outsourcing or bringing someone else on and looking at it from that perspective. But at the end of the day, 100 grand, I mean, it's not really, it's not like I have to be earning 100,000 plus. That's not profit either. That's just revenue. It's just something to kind of bring in attention, bring in people to see what I'm doing. And then I can be transparent with it. And if I fail, I fail. If I beat it, I beat it. That's really, so it's funny you asked the question about, you know, how am I feeling about all this? Because, you know, literally yesterday I posted, well, actually it was at the start of the week, that, you know, I'm not where I want to be, like broadly with everything that I'm doing, but I'm further than I expected because I didn't know what to expect. So it's a bit of both. You know, it's always that catch of like, you know, sometimes we get so focused on where we want to be, we don't take the time to smell the roses and pat yourself on the back. And that's why I use the dashboard to kind of keep myself honest and in perspective that, okay, no, things are going good and I can't complain. And that's the other thing that I like to appreciate is no one else is controlling this. Everything I do, it's all on me. So if I don't get what I want, I can't blame it on anyone else. Like there's no one else is telling me what to do, or they can't say told you so, because I'm the only one controlling it. So it puts it into that perspective really, really well.
Yeah. How do you, it sounds like you're very goal oriented. You set a goal for $100,000 revenue. You set a goal to journal every day. You set a goal to document your whole marathon training journey, for example. Have you always been a goal setter? Like we set goals and stuff, but sometimes it's not the easiest to stick to them. Like what do you think sets you apart from maintaining your focus and staying on path to like your goals?
Or do you have like a lot of like unscheduled pivoting that you just got to like change and I guess overcome like things that pop up all the time?
It's probably a bit of both. Like if I reflect back to when I was, you know, younger, like I was homeschooled for 4 years. So that probably gave me a benefit of knowing how to be studious by myself. And I've always been someone that's like to kept to myself. Like I'm not like a out there really, well, I am now, but you know, I'm not naturally, I've always been the one, you know, I'd rather be at home by myself. I'm happy to not go out on a Friday night and party. That's not me. So I've always stuck to myself, which I guess in that sense, I'm capable of just doing my things that I want to do. But if I reflect back to, you know, going through uni, you know, I wanted to get, my goal was I wanted to get into uni, get a job and just start straight away. I didn't want to take a gap year. I just kind of wanted to go. And, you know, I got a scholarship, which obviously is really, really good, but it's also something that I had to achieve certain, grades to keep getting the scholarship, you know, which gives you some level of you know, push. So that drove me. And then when it came to starting working, you know, I said to myself, well, I'm going to give myself 5 years first and see what happens. And no matter what happens, I wanted to push it out because I figured it would set me up with some level of good foundational, you know, dollars and savings. And then I can kind of reassess where things are at. And I got promoted to where I wanted to be before that 5-year mark. So that was nice. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'll checkpoint again. And then COVID happened, and that's the pivoting side of where I'm like, no, I realized this isn't the case. But on the same perspective, in parallel, is when I started working, I kid you not, I remember walking into the office, and we have this thing called the bench that when you're not on a project, you kind of just, you know, you do admin and wait till you get picked up by a client. And I remember walking into there and I was listening to 2 podcasts. One was the Solopreneur Hour and the other one was SPI, which was from Pat Flynn. And they had both started their podcast journey like that year or the year prior. And because they've been doing it for about 7-8 years now. And it was like their first episodes and then talking about building their own business, you know, doing their own thing. So I knew even though I was going to work full time, I want to create something on the side. I just didn't know what that is. And I've had numerous different businesses to do that. So I've always had those goals embedded behind me. They maybe just weren't as detailed now because that it didn't have to be. They just kind of like was a North Star. So when I'm making decisions on a yearly, you know, monthly, or if daily, and it was going to direct me that way, then I knew where I wanted to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think why do you think you got your interest to like look outside of your 9-to-5 job? Or your parents, did they have side hustles, for example, and you've seen others perhaps what's it? Let's say unbeaten path.
Yeah. The unpopular path. I don't know, the different path.
Different path.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I was the first one in our direct family to go to university. So it yeah. Look, I mean, I'm trying to on the spot. I'm trying to really think what's kind of been the difference, but I think I don't know. I honestly don't know what has driven me. I think it's probably just my own self curiosity, maybe. Yep. I mean, my dad has worked for himself, and he buys and sells stuff, not on the level that I do, but more from a car's mechanics perspective. So, probably seeing that has had some level of. So he doesn't work. He was in a car accident about. Must be about 31 years ago. So he stuffed his back after a couple of operations. And so he's always worked for himself since then. And when I say work for himself, just buying and selling and things like that. So, seeing that's probably maybe one thing that's enabled me to think outside of the box. But when it comes to, like dealing with money or thinking where I want to be, I've always been driven to do that myself. My parents taught me, money and how to deal with it and things like that. But I'd have to say it probably is just self-curiosity and seeing what other people are doing and realizing there's more to it. I mean, even if you ask me why was I blogging for, in a row, I was, to be honest, starting that, I wanted to, once again, it came back to I wanted to create something. And I figured if I can keep blogging, I might be able to motivate other people, encourage other people, and create something from that. But that was before it was a really big thing. I didn't know how to monetize it, any of that. I was kind of doing it for the right reasons, actually. And then probably when I wanted it to be for money, that's when I lost the interest in it because I wasn't getting the result I wanted. So yeah, look, I've always wanted to, if I said it out loud, you joke about, I want to retire early. I always had the idea that I'd work 10 years really, really hard, and then, kind of just figure out a way to not have to work anymore, which is what everyone wants, right? Yeah. But, I mean, with that said, one thing I don't really talk about on my stream is I do have 2 investment properties with my brother, which, I got quite early, which was something which, was something I didn't think I was going to do, but I wanted to own my house originally by 25. That was a goal. I didn't own a house, but I had 2 rental properties, so I guess that's better than nothing. So looking at it from that perspective, there's ambitious goals of wanted to be a millionaire by 30 and things like that, which it can be overwhelming because you say these things as a kid, but then you kind of put that pressure on yourself. But no one else put that pressure on me. That was entirely me. So I guess maybe that has also what's motivated me, because I've said these things and, I want to make sure I can deliver on them to myself.
Yeah. So you've taken the sabbatical. Do you think everyone wants to retire early? It's obviously always the dream. You got to hustle and grind to get there. Do you think taking the sabbatical and taking this alternative route to focus more on your channel, just being yourself and producing different types of content, whether it be podcast or Instagram posts or what have you, do you see yourself getting there on this path and not requiring to go back to your 9 to 5? Do you see a path there? Obviously, it's probably a potentially harder path because everything's on your own. You're trying to be self-made. Do you see it as being potential and more rewarding?
Yeah, yes, 100% already, because I've had every single weekend off this year, and last year I don't think I had a single weekend off. Okay. So that I can already answer. I have the flexibility. Like, I've played more video games, not necessarily finished, but played more video games this year. So these are things that I can use as reference points. I've played more video games this year than I have in the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. I've made more money in my first month of reselling than I did on Furry for 3 years in a row. So to me, that shows me, well, clearly there's something there. Obviously, I'm not earning anything like I've been, at a 9 to 5, but then at the same time, I have the flexibility of time. I'm doing all these different things. My mental health is so much better. And my YouTube, has grown from October last year, I was at 550, and now I'm at 925. So, it's just over 6 months. And yeah, so to me, it speaks for itself. And the way I look at it, if it took me, I've crunched the numbers from my savings, and there's got to be careful what I say without revealing too much. But worst case, there's a certain number of months which would tally into years that if I had to only live off savings, that I could. Obviously, I don't want to do that because, the idea is the savings are there, that all my hard work for the last 7 years. But it is there. And if I took the risk, I could do that. And if I end up earning just as much as I am after that period, then it's happy days because I'm happy. I'm smiling. I'm just, I have that luxury of time. And I remember, once again, nothing against my work. It was just the situations we're in, my responsibility as a manager, having to prep for meetings on the weekend, getting ready for the Monday morning. And, I would hang out with Carla, my girlfriend, on Saturdays, but couldn't do Sunday because I have to be back by 2 p.m. because I have a meeting, but I have to prep before the meeting. And then we'd have a call at 9 p.m. at night. So then we have the meeting with the client at 9 a.m. on the Monday morning. And some of that is my own doing because of the type of person I am. I like to deliver high quality. I want to be on top of things. I don't want to be rocking up and looking slack. Plus, the people I was working with quite senior people from a client side and internally. So, I was probably working above my pay grade in that sense. And once again, trying to be promoted and things like that, we're motivated and we have a different drive. But once again, nothing against all that, but I know that it's not good for me. And looking at what I'm doing now, I'm like, yeah, 100%. This is, I'm smiling. So I see the 100% potential in this.
Far out. You're so inspirational. It's so good, and you're so young. It's amazing.
I'm the same age. I'm the same age as you guys.
Oh wait, what?
I thought you were way
Well,
younger.
I assume so.
Wait,
we should play a guessing. We should play a guessing game right now. Yeah, we have to do it. But okay, so you guys have to guess first, please, because then that will put some perspective. Well, Sarah, you have to because you said it.
Yeah, I thought you were like 26.
No, I'm older than 26.
Oh, 28?
I was going to say 31.
I'm 29.
Oh.
I turned 30 this year.
Oh, congratulations.
We're way older than you. We're like a whole dog life in almost. No,
we're how old are you? 33, 34 this year?
33, yeah.
Yeah, 33.
Yeah. And you, Sarah?
Yeah, 33. We're both born in the same year.
Okay, well, I thought you were literally like 29, 30. I didn't realize, not that you're old, but...
Yeah.
Wow, there you go.
I wish we were doing the side hustles 4 years ago. We had a couple of random endeavors, the podcast and Star Trek podcast.
Yeah, you did.
We've always had something on the side. It's only because you've gone reselling full time, it's no longer a side thing. So now this social media and doing videos is like a side thing now, which is cool. Yeah,
let's say that you just maintain your trajectory in terms of you get to $100,000 revenue. How else do you see the other aspects of your sort of social media and other stuff going? Like, where do you want to see the YouTube and the podcast in a year or two from now?
Yeah, so look, putting it all on the table, obviously I want to be monetized on YouTube. I see that being as a way to grow, and there's elements there that I'm working on to test out to see how there could be potential, because I don't want to just monetize. Well, sorry, we can become monetized with watch time, but then is there anything else I can offer on top of that? Whether it's a membership or something, but that I'm still figuring out. But that's definitely something I want to be able to do and give, a certain smaller community of people some extra value, but I haven't figured out that entirely. And then, from YouTube, 100% honestly, so I haven't made money from YouTube, but in some sense I have, because I've been given free items, the shoes that I've done reviews on, back when races were open. I used to film some of those races for the race directors, and I was paid free entry for that for me and my girlfriend. So it's actually been quite rewarding in that sense. But it's not like I'm walking around saying, I've made, 10 grand from YouTube or something. But I see it in the long run that would be obviously a byproduct of me documenting and sharing. And that's kind of a reward from doing it. But so definitely from the reselling and from Further Your Lifestyle, I intend to double down, grow, add on things that will enable additional revenue streams, because, if I want to grow and my bigger goals and dreams and lifestyle, well then, yeah, I need to, because I am living at home still, yeah, I do have 2 rental properties, but if I want to get my own place, have my own place with Carla, all that jazz, then yeah, I can probably rent and whatnot, but I want to not rent. I want to have my own place and that I can call my own. So if I want to do that, it means I have to be able to have, enough savings, but also evidence that I can provide, to the bank and pay off a mortgage. I don't think I'm in any position to be able to buy a house outright yet, but at the same time, I'm also investing a lot of things into shares as well. So not just trying to put everything in one bucket, but I also know that those things don't happen overnight.
Yeah, we're very similar. We're trying to, we, got a couple of stocks, like doing the NFTs.
It just seems like
spreading it out.
Yeah, it's just it's just like the financial freedom. It's trying to somehow, in your own way, accumulate multiple sources of income, revenue.
Yeah.
I think the classic FIRE thing is to generate seven streams of income, and that's what we're trying to do. And there's no shame in trying to hide it or anything, or saying you want to get monetized or run memberships. A lot of people hate on people on YouTube for not asking for money, but putting out services that are a benefit to people. And if people are willing to put money down in support of that, there's nothing wrong with that. Realistically, most of us, before we even get to that monetization point, lose a lot of money. I know we've probably, based on giveaways and stuff, we've probably lost $1,000 on YouTube, making t-shirts, giving you Pokemon boxes, paying for subscriptions. So it's just about growing and building that social status amongst your following for them to embrace you. But there's always going to be haters that hate on people for trying to think outside the box and get other streams of income. But none of us are going to be millionaires anytime soon, or really probably ever. No. But it's just about slowly building out your following, your calling. And then if someone's willing to pay $5 for a furry shirt in a couple of years, then that's what you've built towards, But yeah, it's like you said, you start jumping into it at the beginning without building that. That's where a lot of people have their downfall, I think.
Yeah, and to that, it's a fine balance, right? Because obviously success isn't going to come overnight. But, the other thing, I've had multiple businesses in the past as well, which have flopped, or, I didn't know it well enough. So like I had a business called Sockify, which was basically subscription socks. And this was back in, good grief, this is, 2017. Maybe, around 2017. And there wasn't any other subscription stocks at the time. So I started this with a mate from uni at the time. And we had about, I think we peaked at maybe 15, 16 customers. And we were doing about $297 a month selling subscription stocks. And the way we did it was, well, originally you think, taking on the model of, who are the guys called that sell the razors? What are they called?
I know what you're talking about.
You know the one, right? And they did that really big campaign. Oh my gosh, I still use them. I can't even remember what they are. But yeah, subscription razors, basically. Yeah. Sorry, guys, I've destroyed your name. But yeah, so following that same model, we're like, well, we'll get the socks cheap. But, we didn't have money to go buy, 100,000 socks from, another country.
Dollar Shave Club?
Yeah, that's the one. Dollar Shave Club.
There you go. Sarah saved you.
So what we decided to do was like, well, what's the quickest way to get socks out to people? Well, go to Kmart. You can get 4 pairs of socks for $2, white crew socks. And then we would air compress them into envelopes and send them as letters in the mail. And we would, because we wanted to make sure that they were cheap, still quality, and we made money from it. So we were doing subscription stocks at like, $12 or $15 at the time. So it was, it's a bit different now, but they were getting like, 3 pairs of socks for like $12 or $15 delivered to their door. And then postage started to become an issue because they started to not like what we were doing. So we were getting a few issues there. And then they changed the pricing as well. This was one of the first price peaks. It went from like, I think it was when it was only $7 and now it's $9. But we're like, we can't do that, right? And the time we were trying to put into it, obviously we were doing it for just trying to make some money. We probably could have actually made it work, to be honest, because there's now like 4 or 5 strong competitors doing it at scale. So we had another business, which was Mr. Mum's Cleaning, which was actually a business we started in uni as part of our entrepreneur course, and we won that in the group, in the class. And the idea was that, yeah, we would basically take people's washing and clean it and then deliver it back. So, yeah, just want to outsourcing people's washing. And, we had all the numbers, we ran all the stuff, and we were serious about doing it. And we were going to start it, like literally hands on. And we realized we're not going to have the time for this unless we go all in. And that's when we actually pivoted and went to Sockify instead. Because we had done all the legwork in our project for the class, but we just hadn't actually done it. But we realized no way we're going to have the time to do this and try and do our full-time jobs and things like that. So we weren't willing to risk it at the time. Pivoted to Sockify. That flopped after a year and a half. I bought my partner out, signed it up to me. I kept doing it as long as possible. Didn't have the energy for it, just because I didn't see where it was going. And then ended up selling the name of it for about $150 to some guy in the US. He wanted the Twitter name, so I was like, sure. So, yeah. And I've done a few other little things on the side and tried them out, but I've always been trying to grow something as early as possible. Like I used to sell Yu-Gi-Oh cards on eBay when I was 12, on my parents' eBay account. I remember buying them off my friends for $20 and selling for $160, like 4 cards. And they were the original 1995 ones, which now they're worth just mega dollars, which is depressing. But, back then I felt like I was a millionaire, right? Because I was making the dollars. And, I've done a few little things like that with Lego and stuff like that. So I've always been trying to create the dream life or create something, but nothing is necessarily stuck, which is when I reflected on that and I realized, coming back to, me seeing the potential in this is like, well, I need to put in the same amount of effort that I'm putting into working for someone else to see what will stick, what will fly. And I've got other ideas, like other things that I want to add and do, but I can't do them because I don't have the time because I'm all in on this. So I need to get these into a position where they're somewhat making some income and they're comfortable that they can run themselves or whatever. And then I can jump to the next thing. Like I've got a whiteboard of things that I want to do, another business, other ideas, series, things, but you can't be doing everything at the same time and knowing when to execute. But then the struggle is that I'm like, this idea could be perfect, but you really got to weigh up and take the risk. It's risk versus reward, right? I could stop doing these things, try that, and maybe it works out even better. But that's not really, I don't want to do it for the money. I want to make sure I'm pulling back to what my goal is, which is I want to build the podcast. I want to see where that goes. And that's always what I've wanted to do because I love seeing what other people are doing. And I think that's my number one focus with everything else along the side to make sure I can do that.
Yeah, I think the overall consensus of Chris's story is just to do what you love, like do things that you like. Don't be afraid to try different things, and you're never going to fall in place on your sort of final destination on stop one. It all starts from the ground up. Literally started selling socks from the ground up.
Yeah.
That's how you get there. So.
But like the whole thing is like, if you realize it's not working for you anymore, like originally when it was, it's like change, pivot, try something else. Just keep trying and move forward. It's so cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris, so much for coming on as our first guest on the Look My Mum Hustling podcast.
I'm honored. So much. Thank you.
All right. Do you want to?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you, what you have planned in the next upcoming months? You have a marathon. Is it a triathlon coming up?
Ultra marathon,
even crazier.
So you can find me, CL Furlong _CL Furlong _ on Instagram. Otherwise, my YouTube is CL Furlong. And yeah, that's for my personal stuff behind the scenes of everything that I'm doing. I do monthly live streams sharing all these goals, updates that we've been discussing. But otherwise, you'll find at least 2 videos on reselling a week and 1 video on the running journey, which one of those goals is the ultra marathon, a 50K for this year, which is on September the 11th. So training for that, I'm on week 3. So a video of that will be coming out each week. And then the podcast is the other main area of what I'm doing. So that comes out weekly episodes, Sunday, 9 a.m. furtheryourlifestyle.com. You can go check it out. It's on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts and all those good places. weekly episodes. This week, well, by the time this comes out, so when people are listening, the last episode will have been with Kevin Exconde, a creator from Canada, talking about create more, and building something for yourself in the world of YouTube and filmography and videography. So really exciting to be able to have that. And yeah, I mean, he's a really good friend, so awesome stuff on that one. But yeah, that's kind of what's coming up.
Awesome. And yeah, everyone should go and check out Chris's podcast. We'll leave all the links in the description of the YouTube video and in all the podcast show notes as well. But really diverse range of guests he has on there. It's sort of something that we want to replicate and have different people expressing their own interests and passions and hustles and stuff. But yeah, you're not going to just get a one-trick pony in terms of the guests on Chris's channel. You're going to get a wide range of everyone. And he's also almost at 1,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. I'm sure we can get 20 or 30 over there at the very least, because we did give him, or he'd earned it with quiz questions, a Pokemon ETB that he's dying to open, and we need him to open it sooner rather than later. So we need you guys to go on there and sub to his YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, and definitely his Instagram too. Great shares, great posts, great updates.
The thing
Absolutely
I love the most about his Instagram, and I don't think anyone gives you enough credit, the photos are actually crazy. I don't know if you edit them or you just use it on your phone. The quality and the colors, I'm not even joking. They look like they're on a DSLR. Like, it's crazy.
So that's the beauty of an iPhone 11 and Lightroom.
Nice. We know that feeling.
No, they're crazy. Just the color, even like when you do your weekly nacho post, I'm like, oh, the colors on them nachos look really nice.
Thank you.
We'll wrap it up. Yeah. All right. So we'll leave all the notes in the description and stuff. And once again, thank you, Chris, for being our first guest.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Look Mama Hustling Podcast. Until next time. See ya. Bye.